Well, I'm John Bachman. Those Afghan Army officers who vanished in Massachusetts are now in the custody of U.S. immigration officials. They were found near the Canadian border yesterday. The Boston Globe reports that they visited a strip club while they were on the lam. Authorities say they are all being charged with immigration violations and they face removal proceedings. Now, more on those U.S.-led airstrikes in Syria. American missiles and fighter jets streaked into Syria, hitting both ISIS and targets linked to al-Qaeda fighters known as the Khorasan Group. Military officials say the Khorasan Group was in the final stages of planning attacks on the U.S. or Europe. Along with America, 5 Arab countries sent fighter jets as well. In all, they hit more than a dozen ISIS targets. Also getting in on the action, the F-22 Raptor. That plane made its first combat debut. And the Pentagon officials say there will be more airstrikes.
Is that these strikes were very successful. Second, while it's not our policy to discuss future operations, I can tell you that last night's strikes were only the beginning.
Well, today, this is what it looks like in a village in northern Syria. This area has been known to be held by the Nusra Front, another terror organization linked to al-Qaeda, but separate and a rival of ISIS. President Obama in New York today for the UN General Assembly during a meeting on climate change. He says the U.S. will do its part and no nation will get a free pass.
We have to cut carbon pollution in our own countries to prevent the worst effects of climate change. We have to adapt to the impacts that, unfortunately, we can no longer avoid.
Also, the president announcing a new executive order focused on climate change. It will direct federal agencies to consider climate change in all international development and investment programs. Also in New York today, former Treasury Secretary Henry Paulson says climate change is the biggest risk to the economy today. Paulson, who served under George W. Bush, made the comments at the Clinton Global Initiative in New York. He says the solution is a carbon tax so companies will know the cost of addressing the problem. And conservative filmmaker Dinesh D'Souza avoids prison but does get sentenced to 5 years of probation. A federal judge handed down the punishment in New York today. D'Souza will serve the first 8 months of his probation in a halfway house. He will have to pay a $30,000 fine and was ordered to do community service. Back in May, the critic of President Obama and the director of the movie 2016 Obama's America pleaded guilty to violating campaign finance laws. And officials are warning the amount of people infected with the Ebola virus could grow exponentially in the next few weeks. The World Health Organization says the number of cases could hit 21,000 by next month. That's unless there's more of an effort to curb the epidemic. Also, the WHO, the World Health Organization, says there aren't enough supplies and doctors in West Africa to care for the sick patients. Meanwhile, the CDC says the number of cases could jump to more than 1 million by January. I'm John Bachman. We'll have another update coming up for you in 30 minutes. For now, we'll send it up to New York City and the Steve Malzberg Show coming to you live.